This is War Room Moments, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and most relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. War Room Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board. Here's your host, Jason Miller.
Thank you for attending today's War Room Moments. I'm your podcast host, Jason Miller, and today we have David Lantos with us. David Lantos is the CEO of Salty Haven. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company and what you do?
Sure. So as you said, David Lantos here, CEO of Salty Haven. We are in the real estate investing space, specifically short-term and long-term rentals. We focus our short-term rentals around very desirable vacation spots, and we center our long-term rentals around military installations where there's a lot of families in and out needing long-term housing.
You know, there's some really good points of discussion in that, because you're kind of in that very like Airbnb space and so on and so forth. So how do you see that playing out in the future with what you do versus Airbnb and all these other spaces like that?
Sure. Well, I mean, Airbnb and platforms like that and Vrbo are definitely a great starting point, if you will. But we are definitely looking to expand into our own space, being able to help our hosts in a more comprehensive way. As well as provide top-notch guest experience to the renters, both short-term and long-term.
Yeah, interesting. So is what you're doing like putting a whole new platform together like Airbnb? Is that what you're trying to accomplish?
In the long term, absolutely. That's the direction those are the steps that we're taking from day one. Is to get us to that point. Obviously, sooner rather than later is going to be a benefit to everybody involved. So yeah, that's a good description.
Interesting. So how do you really compete with that? I mean, how do you put yourself at the level of like an Airbnb, and really from a value standpoint, how do you compete with that? What are you doing different? What's your USP that you're doing so different?
Well, the idea is going to be to be a step above, to offer amenities, to offer options that guests can add on to their stay, as well as have a more, I guess, thorough check of the properties, before they're allowed on the platform, spot checks in between guests. Just from my experience, there's, just like in any space, I mean, forget the short-term, long-term rental space. I mean, any space, there's junk out there. There's garbage. So to be able to weed that out of people that would be utilizing us as their vacation stay is I think what's going to set us apart.
Right. So are you shooting more at the higher level, more I guess what's the word, premium type of client, or
Yes.
Doesn't it matter?
I mean, that's definitely our ideal customer. Is somebody that is willing to and wants to spend the extra money for a top-notch experience in a top-notch home or unit. I guess that's maybe a little bit more so geared towards the short-term rental arm of the business. But yeah, that's a good way to describe it. More of a premium experience for a customer looking for that. There's always going to be opportunities for people that want to get somewhere and spend the least amount of money possible per night or on their stay. But they'd be looking elsewhere for that experience.
It's an interesting space. And, I look at this whole space because is it Vibo or Vibro or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Verbo. Yeah. So, Verbo kind of came out and did the same thing as Airbnb, way after them. And I mean, the pandemic almost crushed all that. Right. And then how do you see things picking up now after the pandemic? Because I don't know if we'd say it's subsided, but people just don't care anymore. I guess that's probably the best way to put it.
For the most part, I think that it's very much going away, or not being looked at the same way, as you said, without going off into that rabbit hole. A couple things. One is that in the infancy stage that we're currently in, our target market is not people that are traveling long distance for the most part. Yeah, we're going to have our long distance travelers, but most of them are, I'd say within a 6-hour radius of where we are as far as the short-term rentals are concerned. And people are going to vacation, especially at the income level of our customer avatar. Because things like the pandemic, things like recessions, the effects that they have on people are very, very different. So for our customer avatar, we're looking again for that premium guest, and those people, they're going to vacation, and so that's why we stick in very, very desirable locations. So I think it's going to continue to pick up on all facets. And I guess to kind of touch on the long-term rentals as well, I mean, that's something where those houses are always going to be in need. The military is not going anywhere. They're always going to be moving people around. And there's always a high demand for, 1, 2, 3-year leases on single family homes around in and around military installations.
Right. Well, I can speak for that, knowing that's the case, moving around in the military for 23 years. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty high demand around those locations for sure. It's just it's getting the right people in the house. That's
correct. Which
that could be a challenge.
It is, but you can gear that towards, the neighborhoods that you pick to own real estate in, the types of homes that you choose to purchase real estate. As far as, hey, am I getting a family in here, or am I getting a single military guy that's going to have 3 roommates?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because with a lot of the rule changes years ago with the BOSS program and all these things, I don't even know if that's still even around, but now instead of making people stay on installation, if you're single, you can move off. You don't have to be in the barracks. So that created the party line again, and so I could see where that would be a challenge, and you got to really probably vet a lot of that out pretty well for sure. But well, hey, just kind of segueing into the next part of this, I'm kind of interested in, really discussing what a business struggle is that you've had. I know you've been in business for a lot of years. You got another company too. And part of what I'm trying to accomplish with this podcast is to be able to share some business experience with young up and coming CEOs that are in their early 20s, right? And we have the opportunity to help them shape business a little better than, well, our forefathers helped us shape, right?
Sure.
So ours was just ours. They'd help if you were willing to write a check, right? So, but we have a chance to change that through all this technology we have and stuff like this. And so I'm kind of curious what you would share with a young up and coming business owner as a struggle you had, and how you really overcame that.
Sure. So like you said, of course, there's been numerous struggles and hurdles that I've been through over, up, and around in different businesses that I've owned in the past. But I would say the biggest one is I'm gonna combine this into two. Number one's being cheap. That's something I still struggle with. And number two is thinking that I can do everything on my own. Is probably the two biggest ones, and they kind of coincide with each other because a lot of times asking for help or getting into a community that has the right information, the right people, the right guidance, it isn't free in one way, shape, or form. There's going to be an expense to that. So like I said, those two kind of things go together as far as, me wanting to be as cheap and shoestring as I can. But I mean, I'd rather have half of a watermelon than a whole cherry. Right. So it's definitely been a long time coming. And I can definitely say that those are two things. Well, the cheapness, I don't know if that'll ever go away.
Well, that's not a bad thing, really. I mean,
always counting the pennies, that's for sure. But there's times where it ends up costing me more in the end because I wasn't willing to pull the trigger when I should have pulled the trigger. So I guess to kind of sum that up into the second part of your question, as far as, how I've overcome that, I guess I was lucky enough to stumble into the right connections, meeting the right people that have, been able to help provide those types of things for me. And I know that, a lot of business coaches, mentors, have a similar trinity of things. But, one thing that our early mentor taught me probably, 7-8 years ago, was that if you have the right info, guidance, and the right community, those three things, if you have those three things, that's really the key to moving the needle and moving forward. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that you've said something very, very similar to that means the same thing, maybe not the exact same three adjectives. Is adjective even the right word for that? But I digress. But that's definitely a huge piece is getting yourself in with people that are where you want to be or have been where you're looking to go.
Right. And sometimes that's just, we have to get out of our own way. Right. Mm-hmm. And, I've been in that spot many times in my business careers where it was like, step back and go, you know what? I need to just get the hell out of my own way. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, whether it's outsourcing or it's shedding off tactical tasks, whatever. I mean, there's a million things that come with that. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes it's getting out of your own way. And we all experience that. And, it's overcoming it. Sometimes is easier said than done, right? So,
more often than not.
Yeah, right. For sure. Well, good. Well, thanks for that. Kind of closing this out, I like to ask a question. and we talked a little bit about it as we before we hit the record button, but if you could pick someone that could have been here today on this call with us, and you had one burning question you could ask them, who would it be and what would the question be?
Well, I guess since you prefaced it, I don't have to act like I'm thinking about it, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I mean, because of the new space that I'm entering into, being the real estate space, I feel that a great person to ask. I mean, probably one of the best persons to ask the type of question to would be Warren Buffett. And just simply how did you manage everything from the start? And being able to, obviously get to where he is today through the real estate space.
Yeah. I'd love to just sit with that man for an hour and just pick his brain for an hour.
Oh man, what a priceless hour that would be.
Yeah, for sure. On many different topics, right? Holy crap. Just an hour of time sitting in his living room, smoking a cigar and drinking a scotch. What you could glean from that.
Oh, man.
That'd be great. Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, how do people get a hold of you to reserve a place, rent a place, so on and so forth?
And at this point, like I said, we're utilizing the Airbnb and the Vrbo platforms for the time being, as we're currently working on creating our own contracts in order to be able to kind of step away from that platform. But at this point, that is going to be the safest place for us at this point.
Good. Cool. And your area you're kind of covering right now what's your area that you're covering right now?
Mid-coastal North Carolina. So Emerald Isle, Atlantic Beach, Surf City, Topsail Island is for our short-term rentals. And our long-term rentals are centered around Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville, North Carolina. So your Jacksonville, Sneads Ferry, Holly Ridge, Richlands, Hubert area.
Awesome. Well, David Lantos, Salty Haven, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you coming today.
Thanks for your time, Jason. I appreciate the platform.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for tuning in today to War Room Moments. This is Jason Miller, your podcast host. Remember, always dream it, believe it, and achieve it. And it's Jason Miller signing off.
Thanks for listening to War Room Moments with your host, Jason Miller. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.